All right, everybody, now that we've gone through week one, part one video, which is really all about setting up the course and assignments, submission guidelines, the Google Drive, etc., we're going to get into the second half of our agenda for week one. Other future videos won't have multiple videos. This is just so we can have the initial upfront part separate. Now we're going to get into the second half, which is, of course, the elements of Facebook. And then we're going to talk about the breadth of the Facebook family. Then we're going to get into audience segmentation and really looking at how you formulate an audience segment, because this is extremely important when you're looking at putting together a social strategy. It's really one of the critical pieces because you have to identify who you're talking to, who your target audience is, and that way you will be informed in terms of the behavior of your audience, when you're going to be posting, what you're going to be posting, the tone, what is going to resonate with who you're trying to talk to. All of that is going to be extremely important, and you're finding out your audience, and that segmentation and persona is going to be extremely critical. And then we're going to get into assignment number one that we will get into later. So let's go on in right away in terms of Facebook, the elements and family. Just right off the bat, so as I mentioned, I live in New York City, so if you hear sirens and stuff going off, that's a regular thing. If you're not from a big city, it happens all the time here, so I apologize in advance if you are hearing sirens. It comes through like every 10 minutes. Hopefully it won't happen too often throughout our weekly series, and I'll try and find some space that will get minimal noise as possible, but it's New York City and we're just gonna have to roll with it. So here we go. Facebook elements. So we've all been on Facebook, and we know that element number one we're going to go through is the profile. So the profile, if you are on Facebook, is something what you have. I have a Facebook profile. It's how we interact with our friends and family. It's really that initial personal profile that you have, that you've created. People can follow you as well if you don't accept their invitation. You can message them. They'll post on their, they'll make posts on their profiles as well. They'll be able to put in a lot of their information, photos, etc., and keep people updated. This is something that I think we're all pretty familiar with. The second one is a Facebook page. So if you are, a fan of a TV show, a movie, a band, etc., one of the ways that they can connect is through a Facebook page. And this is where, you'll have multiple people liking this page, or you're able to post photos, link to Instagram, put videos up there, be able to publish ads, and really be able to link to your owned platforms as well, or your owned channels. This would be something that you've definitely interacted with, and you're able to kind of send messages as well. You're able to share it, and create a really solid community of people who are like-minded or are interested in a topic, and want to really learn or be a part of everything that's happening with this specific community, which is really great. Another element is the group. So Facebook group is something that you could be a part of. There are some pretty cool groups that, just like us, we have our this course's Facebook group. It's a more intimate kind of community. It could be a public group, it could be a private group, it could be a closed group. It really depends on what the community is meant to do and who it's for. There are, great discussions that happen on some. This one in particular, if you're a fan of house music, maybe you can join this if you haven't already. A lot of the community members really post up new music, things they found on SoundCloud, etc., new DJs. There's stuff for art. There's stuff for politics. Really, it comes down to joining this group. You sometimes have to The administrators have to accept you to be able to be a part of the group, etc. If this is something that you think is important and could work for you, it's another option as well. Next up, we have Facebook events. Some of you might have already used Facebook events and hosted your own events and used Facebook, whether it's for family or friends gathering or a more official event that you've hosted or have been a part of, whether it's a picnic or a festival or a concert of sorts. A Facebook event is a great way for you to be able to send invitations about something that's happening. You're able to customize it with your own visuals. You're able to post direct kind of links to ticket sales with all the details. There's also a place for you to discover what is the actual event about, so you can have that description. And there's also a space where people can discuss the event, talk about if they can attend or not, or if they did, it was amazing, and what type of conversations are taking place around the event is another great way for you to let people know that something is happening and you want them to attend if you've invited them. If it's a public event, of course, you could definitely see a lot more people inviting their friends and have something grow organically and have it go from there. Then, of course, we have the live element. This is definitely just a couple of years old for Facebook. It's still continuously being refined, but I think you're seeing more and more live events and opportunities that are taking place that sometimes, it could be 10 people tuning in, or it could be 100, or sometimes thousands, depending on who's actually broadcasting the live and what's happening. It's really great at live events. If you're having a really cool experience, you want to do that. Some cool Q&A opportunities with influencers and celebrities, or even just if you're kind of taking questions and you want to broadcast yourself live and talk to your friends and family, and that's something you could do as well. So then we're going to now get into kind of like the overall Facebook family. And by family, I mean, Facebook, when it first kind of came out, probably about 8 to 10 years ago now. I remember when Facebook was originally open to just university students with university accounts. I actually got mine when I was at University of Toronto. I remember that it was really cool. It was something private for university students and then opened up to the public. And since then, of course, Facebook has grown tremendously with a whole bunch of acquisitions. Is now a public company, has shareholders that it needs to answer to. So of course, if you've been on Facebook for a long time, we continuously see updates that happen to the platform, updates to the news feed and the timeline and our profiles, and market additions of like Marketplace and the video and content capabilities. And through acquisitions, they've been able to really continue to beef up the experience in creating a community that you never really have to leave, that connects you through a variety of different ways. One of the ways is just generally just Facebook itself, the foundation of all of this, really, that you can experience on your desktop or mobile devices. Then we have, we have Messenger. Messenger has definitely evolved in the last, couple of years. We've seen Messenger go from something that was just directly built into Facebook only to now it moving into also becoming its lone app itself, when you can download just Messenger app on your mobile devices. The capabilities have absolutely grown from being able to call your friends or family to video calling, so from voice calling to video calling, group chats, being able to share lots of multimedia, so photos, videos, stickers, emojis, voice notes, and then of course the addition of now bots being able to be a big part of Messenger, especially for brands. Having a bot, AI bot enabled um, uh, uh, opportunity for your brand on Messenger is a really great way to communicate with your customers or fans, and guiding them through a really great experience, whether it's a restaurant or a financial institution, etc. I think there's some really, really great stuff that have been happening in the last couple of years as more brands continue to explore and experiment with bots on Messenger, and we'll get into some of that later on. Then we have Instagram. So many years ago, Facebook purchased Instagram, and really kind of helped take it to the next level. Some might argue they did that. Some might argue that maybe it wasn't the best thing. If you have been following along in terms of the news, and you're kind of a little bit of a social and digital nerd like I am, so I think just recently, even just maybe within the last month, the original founders of Instagram who were working with Facebook have now just left. We don't know what that means for Instagram right now, but I mean, Instagram has definitely become a huge part of Facebook's ecosystem, especially with a little bit of a younger demographic. As we look at the growth of the Instagram influencer, as we moved and evolved into that territory from the original bloggers, and then moving down into people who are very popular on Twitter and Facebook, and now moved to Instagram, which is very much a more visual platform. Instagram was based on sharing photos, and of course the addition of easy filters that came in, just a few in the preliminary kind of early days of Instagram. And now we have a variety of different filters to choose from and stickers. And there's also a great way for you to experience the content through your feed versus your profile. Through DMs, you're able to now connect one-on-one. And of course, the DM functionality is also evolving really very quickly. I mean, every day there's something new, coming out in terms of capabilities for Instagram. Recently we saw Instagram Live, which then now moved into IGTV, and we'll get into a lot of that in week 2. But if you haven't heard of Instagram, it's really cool. You should try it out. And it's a really great way for you to discover some amazing content through their Discover feature and through hashtags, be able to establish a community as well, and very much so tell your brand or company story in a really interesting and visual kind of way. And then we have WhatsApp. WhatsApp was also purchased by Facebook. And, I think a lot of that you'll see in terms of the base foundation of WhatsApp has definitely been taken and applied to the Messenger platform. WhatsApp is, if you haven't heard of it or haven't experienced it, it's another standalone app that you can download. Very much like a messenger system. You're able to have WhatsApp groups with multiple people in them. You're able to send videos and images. You're able to do in-app calls that are all on Wi-Fi. You're able to do, and that's voice calls. You're able to do video calls. In some parts of the world, WhatsApp is huge. And actually is a massive driver for marketing programs, especially when you're looking at different places in Africa. Definitely multiple countries within Africa, even in South Africa. There's some pretty cool WhatsApp programs that are being done from a marketing perspective. especially even in the Caribbean as well. WhatsApp is pretty big with voice messaging, and there's some pretty cool programs that have been done to be able to activate those specific audiences. Let's say, for example, because it's just been the best platform, the usage on WhatsApp is a lot higher than other platforms, so it really makes sense for marketers to be able to utilize WhatsApp groups and WhatsApp messages to that go out and get broadcasted to those target audiences. So speaking of audiences, as I mentioned, when you're putting together a program and you're thinking about, okay, what am I going to be doing? There's a couple of things that, why am I making this content? What's my step one? Knowing your audience is extremely important. And you got to ask yourself, why am I going to be on Facebook? Or why am I going to be on Instagram? Or any other platform, to be honest. I mean, this isn't a course about Twitter or LinkedIn, but you got to really think about that as well. Right now, we're focusing on Facebook and Instagram, but you got to ask yourself, why Facebook, or who is my target audience? And I think whenever you're putting together any type of marketing plan for a company, for, let's say, a brand, a community center or organization, nonprofit, you definitely have a sense of who your audience is. And if you don't, I suggest you put it on the brakes for a second and really think about who your audience is. And this isn't just something like, oh, my audience is going to be moms, or my audience is going to be, college kids. This is really about taking time to doing your research and identifying that audience persona. So for us, when we're looking at how we're going to be creating a social strategy or digital marketing strategy, we're really taking some time to identify the different types of personas that are, or really make up, our audience base. And it could be one or two. And if you have multiple stakeholders, it could be, a few of them. It could be up to 5 sometimes. And for us, we go through research. We're able to really look at some behavior. If you, depending on who you work for, if you already work for a brand, maybe it's a larger brand that has some more resources, you're able to tap into some other research. But there's some really, cool, online resources as well that you could look up in terms of Nielsen and Forrester, Holmes Report, etc., that really put out, annual kind of stats on different types of audiences and different sectors, etc., that you could tap into to kind of base a little bit of your audience segmentation on. And when we get into those personas, this is what it really looks like. So it's really about knowing your audience, and from them you have to ask yourself, is your content going to educate? Is it for entertainment? Is it for rewards? What is really, that thing that they need from you? And because that is really going to shape how you structure how your content is going to come to life. And because at the end of the day, it's about them. It's not about you. I think you have to be able to create content that's going to earn their attention, because you're competing with a lot of other stuff that are appearing in their newsfeed. So if you're able to understand what is going to drive them and motivate them, that'll really help you put together some solid, engaging content. And all of those drivers of what is important to them feeds into this audience persona. So, for example, this is a way that a persona kind of template looks like. There is a required reading from Buffer. And we'll go there now. In terms of, I'm just going to click on that right now. And this is something here where we're able to go down, sorry, I'm just trying to see here. Okay. So this is something where this is going to be required reading for you this week. You know, it definitely gives you, it's a pretty solid article. It definitely gives you a really good foundation of how to put together an audience persona. And it's really important for you to get to understand what this looks like and how you do this because, again, it's your foundation. Please take a read through it. It gives you an example, and we'll kind of dive into this again here. So right now, when we're looking at the name, the job title, so it could be, Sally. They could be depending on if it's a C-suite, for example, if it's B2B in terms of your brand or your product that you're trying to market. So it could be Sally. She's the chief marketing officer working at a financial institution. As the chief marketing officer, this is what drives her. She's maybe in the age range of as a chief marketing officer, maybe late 30s, or maybe 38 or 40 and up, or 40 to 50. The salary range is this much. This is where she's located. She's probably got an undergrad, maybe also a master's degree. Is also a mom. What are some of the goals and challenges? What are some of the fears and values? So now we're getting into not just this is the demographics, but what drives this person. Ideally, what is something that they are interested in? What are some of the goals that they have? So their goal is to make sure that their brand is top of mind. So how is your product is always going to be positioned in getting that attention in terms of that your product will be able to do that for them. So this is something that you are able to put together and really shape through some research and putting some thought into who your actual persona is. And this is an example for you to see. So Rachel, small business owner, social media marketing. She's the key decision maker. That's how old she is. She's makes about $90,000 a year. Lives in an urban location. Has got a master's degree. She's married but no kids. And some of those drivers are there on the side as well. So this is going to be something that I do want you to take some time into looking at. Read that buffer article. This is definitely going to be part of your assignment. So make sure you do that. The other thing that we're looking at when we're looking at our audience is really what is going to be the best for your audience and your content. Is it going to be a profile? Is it going to be a group? Excuse me. And is it going to be an event if that's what you're doing? We went through a couple of the elements of Facebook, and now we're really looking at. Now we've identified who your audience is and that persona. What is going to be the best element for you to reach them on? And we'll go through all of these. So in terms of a Facebook page, there's some pros and cons. So the pros with a Facebook page, you can do paid social advertisements. So you can boost posts. You can have different ad units that can drive to engagement, drive to views, drive to click-throughs to a website. There's different types of ad units that you can really look at and connect your Facebook page to. There are no limits to connections. So for example, Facebook profile has up to 5,000 friends that you can have. Anything beyond that, you're not able to add any more friends or any more connections. This Facebook page is searchable on the public web. There's no approval for likes. You have control over what people see. There's actual apps that can be integrated into it depending on how you want to build into that. Again, through some ad units, there's also like call to action. So CTA is call to action integration. So you can drive to, click through to a specific page if you want to drive them to your website, if you want to drive them to a promotion, downloading a coupon. Stuff like that is definitely doable on a Facebook page. And of course, there's the insights. So when you have a Facebook page, you're able to access the backend insights that'll show you over time the increase of engagement, the increase of likes, the increase of views. So depending on what metrics you put on for yourself and KPIs, so key performance indicators, I think those are extremely important. I highly recommend when you're looking to starting a social page or a community for a brand, your initial goals and objectives are extremely important. And we'll get to that in the next couple of weeks as well in terms of what we're going through. But again, the insights are definitely going to tell you how you're tracking as you continue to grow your community and post and publish more content. The cons are that, I remember the days of being able to, everything was about what we call vanity metrics now, are the likes, the number of likes that you have on your Facebook page. So I worked with and helped launch some pretty big chocolate brands in Canada on Facebook. And really initially it was all about getting more likes, getting more people, get that likes number up. And once we were able to publish a piece of content, everybody was able to see it. It would really get into a lot of folks' news feeds and the engagement would be great. But then the algorithm changed and it continues to change all the time, where we're getting to a point where organic content is really getting harder and harder to appear in somebody's newsfeed organically. And what we mean by that is when you're just publishing something and you're not putting paid dollars behind it to actually get that amplification to compete in the newsfeed. And how I want you to really think about that is when you're on Facebook, your newsfeed that you scroll through is all about, it's digital real estate. It's really about your content is competing with everything else that is appearing on there all the time. So if you're interacting and engaging with 10 people or 20 people of your closest friends, the algorithm is going to make sure that you continue to see those posts. If you're engaging with a brand, same thing, but not really at that much of a higher frequency, because what Facebook wants you to do is invest in your content when you're publishing it to make sure you're amplifying it to reach a higher percentage of people that are a part of your community. Again, as I mentioned, there's lots of noise. And there's also, the conversation is from brand to fan. So it's coming from, depending on how you're positioning your content. But on Facebook, if you're sharing something that's working with an influencer, maybe that's a little bit different. But it's definitely a brand to fan, not a fan to fan kind of discussion community. It's definitely you're talking to your community rather than with your community most of the time. And here's what that looks like. I think when we get into looking at the opportunities of having your own URL, you can customize that. You have your blue check mark. You've definitely seen that before if you're a fan of a page that's really popular. This is, RuPaul's Drag Race, amazing show if you haven't heard of it. I love some of their content. They are a powerhouse of a machine that put out really amazing content, and their content is a massive driver of their success. The blue check mark really is all about verifying, so you can apply for a verification through Facebook. If you have a certain number of followers or are relevant, you'll be able to gain that verification checkmark to indicate that you are actually the real account and it's not a fake account. You're able to send messages, as you can see here. You're able to customize the headers, so this could be actually a video or a visual. You have your profile kind of visual here, and of course you can upload photos, videos, etc., and invite your friends and be able to grow your community. So this is what one example of a Facebook page looks like. I did want to provide an example of other types of Facebook pages, primarily because So, for example, if you're a non-for-profit or not like Global Citizen, your real thing is all about generating signups. In this case, that's the primary call to action that they have right on their site, which works for them, and you can do that. The other thing that, for example, for Sick Kids, they have a button and Sick Kids Foundation, they're all about raising money. So for them, adding a donate button feature is something that's really important. So that's there. For H&M, it's about shopping. So you can have a direct link to their online shopping portal. And that's the button that they have kind of set that up. So when you set up your Facebook page, it'll tell you and ask you, what is this page for and what is it being used for? And that'll help you guide what types of buttons will appear on your Facebook page. So now we're going to get into Facebook groups. As I mentioned before, Facebook groups are kind of really, really good for a couple of different reasons. It's a tighter knit community. It could be public in terms of a group. It could be private. It could be closed. It could be, if you want to join a group, you have to usually get approved by the administrator. It doesn't have any limits to connections either. And really at the end of the day, it really works well if you're the brand. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a freelancer, you're really able to connect with a lot of people, because when you post something on a group, usually the people who are a part of the group will get a notification that something has been posted. Whereas if you have a fan page, it just actually that doesn't happen. You don't get a notification. So for a group perspective, that's something that I think is really important, and you can kind of tie into, let's say, another existing brand that doesn't really merit a discussion on the page itself, but you're able to do that in a Facebook group. So cons, it's really about, it's not really the brand voice. This is definitely where it's coming from an individual, not necessarily a brand. It's not that it hasn't been done before. I think it really depends on what your brand is and how, kind of focused you are on the brand. If you're working with a big kind of established brand who have very strict brand guidelines, are very much regimented in terms of their tone, their voice, and how they speak to their consumers, a Facebook group might not necessarily be the best kind of option for you. So you might want to think about that. There's no Insights, Facebook Insights integration for groups, so you're not able to track how your content is performing, how your community is growing, and all that kind of stuff that can really help you stop doing one thing, doing more of something that you're already doing, and being able to kind of shift that strategy that you have for your social channels. Share factor is really low because it's part of a group and it's actually not really existent at all. Not many people are able to share from a group, primarily because some groups or most groups are private or closed. So it doesn't really allow for that to happen. Whereas on a page, you're able to share content all the time onto your own timelines. There aren't any app integrations or call to action integrations. There's a little bit less control of content, and of course there's no advertising in terms of like ad units for specific groups. So that's definitely something to think about. And as we go into kind of looking at the different settings of a Facebook group, you have your title. That's something you can look up here. You have your customized kind of creative piece here that you can upload. Here this group is public, but if you have a closed group or a private group, that'll be indicated here. There's the About section that'll talk about what this group is for. There is an opportunity, then the discussion tab is definitely here where you can post stuff and other folks that are part of the group can post things. The description can also be accessed from here as well. And of course you can upload photos and videos. You can do polls. You can also do live videos from here as well. So, if this is something that is interesting and would work for you, it's definitely something to consider. So Facebook events is, as we said, if you have an event coming up, whether it's a music show, a play, a book reading, whatever the case may be, a picnic, family gathering, birthday, Facebook event is a really great way to go. For a couple of reasons. One, you have, if you're a larger kind of concert or venue that has, an entry ticket that needs to be purchased, you can do that. It's directly built in. Those types of ticket purchase features are there. You can advertise the brand events through Facebook's ad units. It's shareable. You can share events through to your own community. You can mark if you're interested or you're going, and that will appear in your profile as well, or it could appear as an update that appears in people's newsfeed. And of course, those are just some of the things that you could do. There's discussion opportunities as well. It's the other cons about it is, we always see this if you have ever been invited to a Facebook group, that a number of people can say that they're going, but if there's no hard purchase that makes that commitment, you're never guaranteed that all those, if like 100 people say they're coming to an event, but there's no ticket, never a guarantee that 100 people are going to show up. It does require its own content plan or maybe duplication, because you're essentially opening up another discussion opportunity and push that will probably need to have some paid dollars behind it for you to amplify it, and which is in the next kind of point. It won't reach people outside of Facebook. So within Facebook's community and platform, you still will have to put in paid amplification to kind of get it to reach people. You have the opportunity to get or allow people to invite their own friends, which from an organic perspective could work, but it is something that you need to consider. It's not something that you just start up and set up an event and kind of let go and not monitor. You're going to have to monitor it. You're going to have to continuously post things within the discussion so people get notifications. You're going to have to create creative for it in terms of visuals and videos. So all those stuff need to be considered. The event is gone once the date's passed. And at the end of the day, there's lots of events, so it can kind of be a little overwhelming. So in terms of what that looks like, so if you're part of a Facebook page, so here Maggie Rogers, great new artist, if you haven't heard of her, you should check it out. Going to be in Toronto at the Phoenix Concert Theater, so you should check that out. But for musical artists, for example, or any Facebook page, if they have events, you have the opportunity to look at what those events look like and set up a whole bunch of events. So for tour dates, if you're a band, or if maybe a band is your client, you're able to create that over there and kind of have all of these there that could appear in the events section. You're able to have that shop now button. You're able to get tickets. You're able to mark them as interested, so you get updates from them. And then if you actually select a specific city, for example, it'll go to that individual event that will give you the date, the time, access to tickets, discussion. It'll show you how many people are going, how many people are interested, and all that information. So now we kind of go to the individual profile, and that, at the end of the day, it gives people an opportunity to, again, kind of like connect with the person behind the brand. So in Mark Zuckerberg's case, he's founder of Facebook. He's got a Facebook profile. It's a little bit different than, if it's just you or me. And you can definitely kind of initially start talking about what you're doing in your business, but I wouldn't recommend at all using your personal profile for a business perspective. as you can see in the cons, like it's actually against Facebook's terms to be able to do that, and the profile is not set up to do that. You're of course limited to 5,000 connections. You can't boost personal posts, but I mean, for friends, family, talking about some of the cool stuff that you're doing, you can definitely, if you start a Facebook page and want to promote your business, you can share that page onto your personal profile to say, hey, I would love for you to like this page, or this is a project I'm working on. That's definitely a good way to kind of organically tell your friends and family on what you're doing and keeping them updated, but that's pretty much about it. Again, this is just an example. I don't think I have to really go through this in depth, but it's just kind of a setup of what a Facebook profile looks like. And in terms of like photo uploads, posts, video, you're able to go live yourself as well as an individual, and be able to actually do all that as well. So now we're going to get into Messenger. I think Messenger is really cool, especially when you're looking at it from a brand perspective, because you're able to do a couple of really cool things. So the Messenger feature really gives you the opportunity to connect with your customers. It gives you an opportunity to have a more private conversation rather than having a discussion on the public feed. Now, saying that doesn't mean that conversation can't go public. And really Facebook is doing a more, or putting a larger effort into making this a more robust business tool, especially as they've seen the success of bots coming in and playing a big role for businesses and how they kind of manage customer service issues through Messenger. Previously, from a community management perspective, somebody would always have to be managing. If there's a customer complaint or something was wrong with a product, you would have to be a little bit on the ball and make sure that you were answering within a specific period of time. If that was in your about section, you usually sometimes indicate, we'd be able to reach out to you within 24 hours. That was, kind of in the earlier stages of Facebook pages. Now it's a little bit more sophisticated, of course, with bots. But again, it allows you to have a discussion around maybe some issues or customer service issues or product issues that your customers are having in a private setting. But that doesn't mean you should never be careful about what you're posting and what you're saying, because all it takes is a screen grab, and then that gets posted, and then could potentially be an issue where your brand is now in a issues and crisis mode because they've poorly handled a situation. Through this, it could, of course, potentially cost more to manage, depending on who's managing it, if it's an actual person, if it's a building of a bot, which, of course, definitely has its own costs, but it really kind of depends on what you're doing. And this is what it looks like from a Messenger perspective. This is something, if you haven't ever interacted with a bot, it's really, really cool. I think if you, for example, go to the Food Network, kind of say, get started, it says, hi, Jacob, I can send you a recipe each day. Are you interested? Yes or no? And those are kind of canned responses that come in and kind of show you different options of recipes, for example. But this could be done for financial institutions. This could be done for repository for different types of information, that you can kind of provide your clients. There could be fun game components to this. If you're a fun brand, you could kind of take your fans through a really cool journey. You're able to really customize the tone and the voice of the bot to fit your brand profile. So next up we have Facebook Live. This is something that, again, has kind of made its way into a feature in the last couple of years, and is becoming more and more popular. I think, especially from a content perspective and the way people want to engage with large brands, it really, really gives people the opportunity, especially usually you get notifications when you go live. from brands. So it's an opportunity for people to engage in real time. They know that it's not manufactured because there's no editing. It's free to use. And it kind of really, at the end of the day, also lives beyond the live session. So when you're done your live broadcast, that video of the entire broadcast remains as a video that can be viewed after the broadcast is over. This is really cool for like behind the scenes events, Q&As, or fireside chats. If you remember, one of the initial ever kind of live broadcasts happened with BuzzFeed a couple of years ago, where literally it was a watermelon and somebody every minute was coming in and putting an elastic band over the watermelon in the center. And this video lasted for hours, and they were just trying to see how many elastic bands it would take for the watermelon to split in half. And it had insane viewers. People kept tuning in. It was a huge engagement opportunity for BuzzFeed. Everybody was just completely anticipating, was that elastic band going to be the band that kind of broke the watermelon in half? But that was a really cool introduction to live. And of course, the capabilities have gone from there. In terms of cons, you're live, so anything can happen. So if you're a brand or a corporation that is super, really all about controlling everything that has gone out into their consumers or customers, they're really controlling about how they talk about themselves, a live broadcast might not be the best option for you. But, whether it is or not, you just have to embrace the fact that if you're going live, something could happen, and you have to be able to be ready to kind of work through that, whether it's through technical difficulties, or just, the people on camera decide to go off script or whatever the case may be. It's live, it's like live TV, anything can happen. So that kind of really rounds out like the Facebook elements, the family, the breadth. We've gone into your audience and really identifying that audience segment and persona, creating that persona that is going to be right for you, and who you need to target for your business. We've gone through the different kind of elements and if that's right for your audience, and we've gone through the profile page, we've gone through the page, the group, the Facebook Live events, and really it's up to you to decide what is going to work best for your audience. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to be investing in resources, whether it's time, money, building creative, putting together a strategy, it's all about being able to engage and earn people's attention by making thumb-stopping content that is going to appear at the right time because it's relevant. It's going to make it easily accessible from a click-through perspective if you're trying to get them to sign up to an email, make a purchase, drive awareness, increase viewership for a video. All of that really comes down to, is this going to be relevant for your audience, and are they going to stop scrolling with their thumbs, primarily on mobile, to watch your content or to engage with your content? And I think if you're able to do that and really think about that perspective when you're planning your social strategy, when you are creating content for your brand or your client, you're definitely going to be headed in the right direction. So now we're going to get through assignment number 1. I'm going to get to show you what that looks like. So assignment number 1 is going to be us looking at doing a couple of things. So number 1, make sure you do your reading. I also have a whole kind of resources page as well that have other links that you could check out. I suggest you do so. Everything is super helpful. If you find some stuff, you could share it with the Facebook group. Again, things are changing all the time on these platforms. I'm going to try to do these video recordings as close to the date as possible. So just in case if there's any major announcement on the platforms. Hopefully I can kind of slide that in there and make it as real time as possible. But if something comes up, like I'll even post it on the Facebook group, just, hey, heads up, something new came in. But don't forget to check on this week's resources. So part one, I do want to introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about you. Are you currently working for a brand at an agency? You're a full-time student. You're looking to switch careers. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and what brand that it is that you want to start working with or really look up to, because that's going to implement kind of how we move on for the assignment. So do that. I think if you do something like 2 paragraphs, it's totally fine. And once you identify what brand you maybe already work for or would like to work for, put that company or brand name, give me a description of what that looks like, and then kind of copy paste the table below, and kind of depending on the elements, say, yes, I want to do this because of this reason. No, I don't need a page, or I don't need a profile because of this reason. And be very thorough with your answers. I really want to be able to see your thought process and rationale from a strategy perspective as to why you are making this decision. So think about if you were making this recommendation for a client, you wouldn't go in necessarily saying yes, no. You would say, yes, I think we need to move forward with this because of this, 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 and this. So I want to be able to see that thought process from you. So make sure to include that, because that's where you're going to get your marks. So part two, we're going to go into a little bit about our audience segmentation, persona development. So, go through the buffer article, get to know how to put together an audience persona, and your goal is going to be able to put together one audience persona. So only one will be marked for the purpose of the assignment. But, as I mentioned, one brand could have 2, 3, 4, or 5 brand personas, depending on the number of stakeholders you're trying to reach and engage. Again, B2B is different, B2C is different, but what I want you to do is really think about, depending on who you have selected as your brand and company that you want to base this assignment off of, what is that persona? If you do your research, think about who they're trying to reach, what that demographic is. Use the example that I showed you to really be able to fill out that person and that persona, and put all those things that I would like you to include in there as well. In terms of submitting your assignment, again, just please submit on Google Drive. Mark the assignment, last name, first name, and then mark 9058, assignment number 1. So if I was going to be doing it, it would be Porposian Jacob, and then mark 9058, assignment 1. Keep this at max 2 pages. I don't think that, it shouldn't really have to go any longer than that. And you'll see the rubric in terms of what I'm looking for and what the marks will be based off of for part 1 and part 2 of this assignment. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and via email, as I mentioned before, jacobp.gbc@gmail.com. You can join the Facebook group. I highly recommend you do that. And also make sure you're sharing your folders with me on Google Drive. And that way I'll be able to access your assignments so that I can mark them, and you'll see all the due dates on Blackboard for that as well. So that's it. That's week number 1. This was really much an introduction, and then we're going to get into Instagram next week, and then we'll go into content and planning for content and paid, etc. in the next couple of weeks. That's it for week 1. And I'm looking forward to seeing all your assignments come in and connecting with you all on the Facebook group. Thanks, everybody.